Do you feel emotionally connected to your plants? As if in the process of caring for them, they as well are caring for you? What about planty DIYs and thrifting for plant items? If I have your attention, then the Plants by Wade Lee podcast is for you. Join me, plant friends, as we dig deep and experience the magic of plants. Hey everyone, welcome to the Plants by Wade Lee podcast, episode 14. We have the amazing Brian Hood with us. I'm so excited to talk with you. You are a social media manager for so many huge plant brands. I mean, the list is long, and I'm just going to go through a few, but like Miracle-Gro, AeroGarden, Bonnie Plants, Green Digs, Scott's Lawn. I mean, this is a huge resume. And when I saw you on actually the Miracle-Gro Instagram stories, I was like, who is this guy? I mean, obviously, I was like, we're family. Like, I love to see queer spaces represented everywhere. But I loved that, like, big brands are not, shying away from authenticity. And I think that's so awesome, Brian. So I definitely was like, hey, man, would you love to come on the podcast? And you agreed, so welcome. Just to get started, let's just talk a little bit about like your plant journey and like where this love for plants came from. Obviously, you're not just a social tech social media guy for these businesses. You are also a plant lover. You can see in the background all these beautiful plants. So let's start there.
Yeah, so, oh God, starting from the beginning, I've always loved plants. I've had gardens my whole life. My parents were really great. They let me, like, dig up the backyard, like, ever since I was little. Like, our backyard was just, like, dirt, and I would, like, plant things, and they just, like, were like, Brian, be creative, do your thing. They've been so great and accepting and everything. And so, yeah, I basically started when I was young, just starting out in the garden, and then I think I really got into houseplants when I went to college because I was in the dorms and I couldn't really have like an outdoor vegetable garden.
Yeah.
So I kind of got into little houseplants that I could put under my dinky little dorm window. And then from there, obviously, it kind of exploded. Became my career, kind of. So yeah, it's been a really cool journey, and yeah.
Yeah, and going into college, like, did you study agriculture, or were you like this all just kind of fit like
Yeah.
perfectly? The universe was aligned and it worked out that way.
Yeah, it kind of. So I went to school for biology. That wasn't the right fit for me. I loved like life sciences, animals, plants, obviously. And I started my freshman year at Ohio State in natural resource scholars. And so that was a program where we got to do a lot of cool like environmental projects. We got to learn a lot about sustainability and like the environmental impacts and all of that side of things. And so really interested me. I major hopped a little bit, but finally landed on economics and ecological sustainability as my major. Which is really weird, but OSU offers a really cool program that in that field. And so it kind of, yeah, I was just really into agriculture and like sustainable agriculture. I did some volunteering through AmeriCorps at a sustainable community garden / farm where they did CSAs and like subsidized vegetable growing, and
So
it was
awesome.
really cool. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So awesome.
Yeah, so I've always been into like plants and being outside and in all aspects of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. One of my good friends who actually I had on the podcast, she had said that like volunteering at a CSA program was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be, and it's funny, we grew up in Wisconsin, but our families were not farmers. We grew up in Wisconsin Dells in a tourist town. So I love to hear like these CSA programs and what they do, not just for the community, but for people who are young people who are getting involved with agriculture. I think it's so awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And so I volunteered at Franklinton Farms for a summer, and it was such a life-changing experience. Met so many awesome people, got to really like interact with the community. And so their work was based out of Columbus, Franklin, and they would convert abandoned lots into like usable growing areas. And so they had high tunnels
Wow.
and greenhouses, and it was really awesome. And so we would just go and work in the fields all day, and then all of the produce that we would create and grow, we would then be able to give to like the community. And they did a lot of programming where they had like families and kids come in and got to teach them a little bit about, you know, how where their food's growing. A lot of these areas are really are food deserts, and so they don't have access
Right.
to a lot of really like healthy, fresh uh, vegetables and fruits and things like that. So it was a great opportunity to teach them like where their food comes from, but then also just give them access that they normally wouldn't have to these things. And a lot of these kids, like, they don't know what asparagus is or how it grows or just really anything. And I think when people have a larger hand in where their food comes from, I think we can all make better decisions about what we eat, give us access where people don't have access. Like, some people don't have cars, and so they can't drive to the nearest grocery store. So it's telling people, yeah, you can grow like fruits and vegetables in your backyard if you really want to, I think is a really great opportunity that people don't utilize as much as they should. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been seeing it all over the gram in this growing season, like corn, huge husks
Yep.
of corn out of a grow bag. Like,
Yep.
and
I
I'm
saw
doing it
that.
in
I
my own
saw.
backyard. Yeah, it was so cool. And she had like 4 or 5, and they were just
And
huge,
they get huge,
huge.
and people tell you like you can't grow this stuff. And not to say that there's conspiracies out there for people not, big companies not wanting them people to grow their own food, but like I think like people just don't know that like you can do it, and the information is not necessarily out there and accessible for people. But yeah, you can grow things in your backyard to eat. People are
Right.
like I grow like fruits and vegetables in my backyard, and my friends will come over and they're like, you can grow this in your backyard, and I'm like, yeah, like where do you like the farmers do it, so why wouldn't you? um so yeah, it's just not out there. People don't know, but I think it's important stuff to
Yeah,
learn.
it's very important, and there is so much information out there that if you do want to do this. Um,
Yes, absolutely. YouTube.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's how I
If
learned.
you have, yeah, and me too. Like, and trial and error. Like,
Yep.
one thing that I did the other day was like, not the other day, but a few months ago, I noticed that the tomatoes were kind of getting a little scorched by the sun, and they're like little cherry tomatoes, and I'm like, these tasted
Yep.
so good, and now that it's getting super hot, so I like dug up a couple of my elephant ears and plopped them in there, and they've covered so much shade for them, and they're growing in abundance. And it's just like these like little things that we can do as just home farmers and
Yep.
gardeners in our own, in our own backyard. And I live in like townhouses. So it's like if you just even have a box outside of your New York City fire escape, like you can
Yep.
do this.
You
Yeah.
can do it anywhere. You can do it anywhere. I have chickens in the city. I live like in downtown Columbus, and I have chickens, and people go in my backyard, and I have, garden beds lining the entire fence. I have free range chickens running around, and people are like, this is insane. Like, this is a farm. You can do this in the city. And I'm like, absolutely. Like you can grow things anywhere. If you have a tiny little bit of light coming from a bathroom window, you can grow something. And then obviously with today's
Yeah.
technology, grow lights are just fantastic. But you can do it all. You can do it all.
Yeah. Well, and one of the brands that you rep, AeroGrow, is a great a great substitute for doing gardening even inside your home. I had a little aero garden years ago, and just like my apartment, and I had all these awesome herbs until my
Oh
cat
my
ate
god,
them.
yeah, I love AeroGarden. This is actually a grow light from AeroGarden, and it's fantastic. I have my Nepenthes under there, and Nepenthes are like notorious for being hard to do inside. They just need a ton of light. A lot of people grow them outside, but mine are doing really well. And AeroGarden, I use all of the brands. Like, I truly believe in all the brands that I work for. I have a billion AeroGardens. It's kind of obscene. I don't even like eat all the vegetables that I grow from there because there's just so much. I give them to my chickens. I just like the look of having like things growing inside your house. But
Growing, yeah,
yeah,
all
like grow lights are so good nowadays. Like, you can grow pretty much anything inside. I've seen people grow like pumpkins inside, which is insane. But
that is insane.
yeah.
But so cool. How many plants do you have in your jungle?
That is a good question, and I actually meant to count when I was moving plants up. to Cleveland. Again, this is my boyfriend's sunroom that I'm slowly moving my stuff into. I'm encroaching. It's probably gonna start bleeding into the main house, but I easily have a couple hundred.
Yeah.
These aren't even all of my plants. This whole room, I know you can't see it, but all the walls are covered. A couple hundred, I would say.
Yeah, that's
of all
awesome.
various sizes.
And you do like all sorts of different mediums too, and like
Yeah.
yeah, and grow like self-watering containers and
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so I have a lot of like my larger plants I have in potting soil just because leca is kind of expensive and it's hard to move like big leca pots. So I have like most of my big monsteras and like these big guys behind me, they're all in potting soil, but generally everything that's like about, this big or smaller is in leca. So, semi hydro. Um
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I just like it. I feel like it's a little it feels like cleaner a little bit. I'm able to like repot things pretty easily and I can reuse the leca, so I kinda
The
like
leca,
it. But
yeah.
I'm still a fan of traditional potting soil. I still use it in a lot of my things, so
Yeah, and I
it's a
find people that have a lot of luck as well.
yeah.
They're like, well, I still have these plants that are in traditional body mix because
Yep.
But that's the joy of growing plants and having fun with the different mediums and seeing like propagating a plant and being like, okay, well, I'm going to do this in just stratum now, or like
Oh
some
my
weird
gosh, yeah. My
thing.
My friend Molly, she loves using the stratum for her alocasias. I'm not great at growing alocasias, but she does a really good job with those in stratum. And then, yeah, it's fun because I feel like some plants just do better in certain. So, like, sometimes I'll be like, I'm going to try this in leca, and it'll just flop. And you're like, oh, we're going to go back to soil for that one. Or vice
Yeah,
versa. I have like fish tanks too, and I'll like throw cuttings in there just to see how they do. They do amazing in fish tanks, FYI, for
that's
anyone
awesome.
struggling with a cutting, put them in a fish tank. But yeah, so it's fun to experiment. It's all, yeah, I mean, it's a hobby. So it's what, once you get to a certain point, people are like, oh, well, you know everything. And it's like, no, you don't. You're still learning and it's still fun to like test things out. If a plant dies, it dies. But yeah, it's cool and you're learning things every single day for sure.
Totally. Yeah. What do you have like a routine that you have when you bring a new plant in the house? Or do
Oh
you
my
just
gosh.
kind of like, okay, well, I got it from a good nursery. That's how I always feel. I'm like,
Yeah,
I got it from a good nursery. I'm like, I want to take pictures.
yeah, I know, like, people that have been doing it for a long time would love for me to say, oh, I quarantine my plants for a couple weeks and test it and spray them down and blah, blah, blah. I don't. I just throw them in there. Obviously, like, I'll do a check. So I'll go through under the leaves and I'll be like, oh, got thrips. Gotta get that out of here. But, generally, I just kind of throw it in. So if you're a new plant person, don't listen to what I do. Definitely quarantine your plants. It's the best, especially if you have a lot. It's not worth bringing in some thrips because that is a whole mess. I'm sure people know. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I one thing I do is I make sure I don't repot like right away because plants like to adjust. They're just like people or pets.
Yeah.
They like some time to get used to their environment and the new lighting conditions. So I won't repot. I'll generally won't water right away just because that is just asking for root rot. But after a few weeks,
Right.
I'm like, let's just go.
Yeah. A plant that you have unalived and repurchased, thinking that you could do it again or wanted to do again. I mean, calatheas for me all the time. I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful. And
I know. And there's just some plants we're drawn to, but just like don't love us back, which is totally fair. Yeah, and I think a lot of people they're always like, Brian, like you have so many beautiful plants, like you probably don't kill things. And I'm like, I probably kill more plants than like anyone, and I think you probably can attest to this. Like if you have a lot of plants, you're probably like a plant serial killer. Like it takes practice to get good at it. Like it's not something you're born with. So I've murdered God knows how many plants and things that I've like always tried to reach for that I just can't do. Like Rex begonias, I think are gorgeous. Like I love how they're iridescent in the sun. They have like highlighter on it. Looks like, and I cannot keep those little craps alive like for the life of me. And I don't know what it is. Whether it's humidity, I don't know. Can't do it. Those guys, calatheas, I found were such a pain point for me because I think those guys are beautiful and they just like you can put them in spots you can't put other things because they're like a little bit lower light. So I think they're beautiful. They were also a struggle for me for a very long time until I put everything in LECA, and now they do pretty well. So my alocasias do well in LECA. I don't struggle too hard with those guys, but spider mites and alocasias though, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
I can't. Struggles.
I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't had so much issues with pests, and I wonder if it's because of the frogs and lizards that live in this plant room. Like, I was watering this morning and got the shit scared out of me. Like, this huge frog jumps out, and I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder if this is why I don't have pests, because there's little animals living in my plants.
I am literally, well, it's a whole ecosystem. I mean, biodiversity is really important, and that's why, you need to have some sort of predators in here. I'm jealous that you have lizards and frogs. Yeah. I would love to just release them. My boyfriend would probably strangle me alive if I put anything out here. But I've dabbled in like predatory insects, and I feel like they do work pretty well. Like Nature's Good guys, I've tried like the predatory mites, and I forget what kind of beetles they are, but they eat like the mealybugs. But I've seen them eat the stuff, so I know they do put in some work. But that's awesome. I'm so jealous. I love lizards. I have like leopard geckos, and I've had like skinks and stuff. So I'm a big fan of reptiles and amphibians.
That's
and,
so awesome.
I would keep them as pets. Honestly, I'd truck bugs into the room just to feed them.
That's cool. Yeah, I've never like, I don't know. I was always like, even though I grew up in Wisconsin, like, but I ran away to New York when I was very young. So it was always like, with frogs, but I think they're cool now. Like, I welcome them into the plant room from the patio because,
right,
like I said, I really do believe that the ecosystem of them eating the pest is what's really helped. Not, because I spray when I first.
And you don't gotta pay them. You don't gotta pay them.
I'm not like Yeah, and exactly, and I'm not like regularly spraying the plants. I'm just always like, if the plant doesn't look bad, I don't want to put pest control on it, even if it is organic. Do you have any holy grail plant products that you're like, wow, these are like my top 3 that I love, that I cannot live without?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So honestly, and I'm not saying this because I work there, the Miracle-Gro, like all-purpose plant food, I used before I even worked for Miracle-Gro, which is why I like wanted this job, because I was like, I literally use your products all the time. Like my grandma used Miracle-Gro, forever gardening, and so I kind of took over her plant gardening regimen. So the Miracle-Gro plant, like general plant food, I use for pretty much everything. Like anything in soil, like inside and outside, I'll use that. I love my blue water. And then so everything in, and I actually just got a new one, so it's sitting right here, but the general hydroponics, like it's the FloraGro. I use that for all of my LECA plants. And that is really solid, and I've had no issues. And those are the only 2 like fertilizers that I use basically for anything. And then I guess the third product would not actually be a product, and I use like rubbing alcohol and water and a little bit of dish soap to get rid of bugs, and it's like pretty much the only thing that kind of works for me. I've tried I hate neem oil. The smell is like so noxious, and it'll smell a room up for like days, and I think it's just ugh. I know it's like natural and all that, and it is good, and a lot of people swear by it, but I just find it's like not worth it to me. So my little rubbing alcohol and dish soap. I'll put a little bit of Captain Jack's, which is like the only thing that I found that gets rid of thrips, for me anyways. Is pretty solid, but I'll mix all of those together into like my concoction, and I'll just spray that on things and wipe down leaves. But pretty much, yeah, Miracle-Gro, and then general hydroponics, and my weird witch's brew that I spray on things. I've used tequila.
Weird witch's brew.
Yeah, no, literally, because like sometimes when I don't have rubbing alcohol, I'll literally use like vodka or like tequila, and so like my room will smell like a nasty bar sometimes, but it works. So
it's better than neem oil.
Right.
Better than smelling like neem oil.
It really does. And the alcohol goes away after a little bit. I've used like like I used to do like acrylic nails on myself, and so I had like cherry scented like rubbing alcohol, and I used that once, and that was pretty terrible. It smelled like cherry medicine. But again, if it works, it works.
If it
So
works, it works. That's
yep.
hilarious. Switching gears a little bit, Brian, what does pride mean to you? Especially like this
Yeah.
month of June. What does it mean to you personally?
Oh my god, it's pride? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think pride means like despite for me, especially like gay pride. Like, I think for a lot of us, like the world has always kind of pushed against us in every way. And like I think pride is like despite everything that people tell us or society tells us. I think it's like saying like I know you guys have told me all of these things about myself, but despite all of that, I'm going to go out and shout from the rooftops that I love who I am. And it's a process. I know a lot of us don't love who we are like at the beginning, and it's really
Mm,
difficult. And so it is like a journey, but like saying that like despite all of that, I'm going to not be afraid to tell people who I am and to be who I am. So I think that's what pride means to me, is just like going against, everything that's like fighting us at all times when we were, very young from the very start, and um making sure that we're being loud, and we exist, and we're here, and saying, we're not going anywhere. So
yeah, I love that, Brian. That was so
yeah.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing
Oh,
that.
of course, of course.
Because yeah, it's true. Like so true. Especially the climate here in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Everything with all of the legislation that's being passed and the books being banned, and not just queer books, but black and indigenous books that are so
Yep.
important. It's so now is the time to really, groin our pull our groin loins from the groin or whatever that is, and grab our bricks, our stonewall bricks,
Yeah.
and stand strong. Like uh DeSantis had us legislation, a law put in this year that there would be no pride lights on the bridges. Insane. And I just get chills, but like our community here like grabbed rainbow flashlights and like walked to the bridge and was like, no, like you cannot dim our light. And I think it's just such an awesome, like a very simple statement, but just such an
Yep.
awesome statement. Like you are not, you cannot, and you will not, because we're a people.
Yep.
It's so crazy to me, like especially coming from the church, and I grew up in the church, and just that whole realm that controls so much of our world and our society, and it means nothing, yet they stand behind values that are not real, are not about love, are not about what Jesus represents. And I
Mm-hmm.
see so much more as I've grown to love myself and fight those uh evil things that they told me that I believe to be truth about me. As I've grown, I've realized like this community, this gay community, has been way more loving and accepting, and has had my back much more than any day that the church and all the people were telling me all these negative things. So I appreciate you, Brian, for saying that, and coming onto the pod. I was like, especially in June, I was like, this is perfect. This will be our Pride episode.
I love
Um,
it. Yes.
and yeah, and going with that too, I went through an ex gay ministry, and my my late teens, 18, 19, I went through an ex gay ministry in Memphis, Tennessee. And in finding plants in the last 4 years, it has really opened up this whole new world of queer joy. And like, I fought it so much. Even like, I left the ex gay movement, moved to New York, was a fashion hairdresser, lived in the gay world, but I never really felt like pride for
Yeah.
one, or just that sense of just joy. And finding plants and then connecting with other queer plant people has really been like, wow, I'm reclaiming my queer joy with this. And so that leads me to my next question. Like, have plants played a emotional role in your life? Have you felt emotionally connected to plants? Or has it just kind of been like, this is a hobby, or do you feel that connection as a plant person?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely feel that connection. I feel like in one way or another, like plants have always been like a part of my life, and yeah, I don't know. I think like being outside and gardening and like I guess my perspective is like anything that like a queer person does to find joy is like about it is queer joy, right? Like so like I think it's radical for any queer person to like enjoy their life and like have a hobby that they love and to be out and gardening and just being happy and just experiencing everything because there are people out there that don't want us to be around. Like they don't want us to exist, right? So I think anything we do is radical, whether it's like we hold someone's hand out in public or you go on a date with a guy like out like at a restaurant, like anything we do, it can be as small as just like mowing your lawn like with pride something on. It can be so small, but it means so much. So yeah, gardening along with anything, I think that we feel love and happiness for. I think is I think it's radical and awesome. And yeah, I love gardening. I'm gonna do it gay, and anything I do is gay, and anything I do is queer. So gardening is queer, and a lot of us are out there, right? Like there are a lot of queer people out there gardening. If you go on Instagram, we exist and we're out there, and we're shouting from the rooftops that we're part of the community too. And
yeah. So. Well, taking care of plants is self-care, like it's self-reflection, and it's those moments of just silence and being with your own self and your own thoughts that, change who you are and make you grow as a person. So yeah, I love that. How about any new projects coming up? Do you have anything that you could share with us that you're doing? Is there anything, that you have in the works or that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I don't have a ton, like, I do, I'm a social media manager full time, so I don't do as much, like, on my own personal, like, TikTok and things like that as I would like to. I feel like I get a lot of my creative output, like, through work, and I love my job so much, and I know that's really, rare to find, that, like, you love your 9 to 5, but I really do love it. I think, we have some really cool stuff coming out with Miracle Grow. We're working with Martha Stewart right now, and our team is really loving her and everything that we're doing with her. I'm in a lot of the content now, so that's kind of new. A lot of the Miracle Grow stuff. If you want to see me, I'll be on Miracle Grow quite a bit. But yeah, I think me personally, just taking care of myself, moving to Cleveland. My boyfriend's up here. Hanging with my
Congratulations.
So, yeah.
Congratulations on the move.
Thank you so much.
It adds a whole nother dynamic to life, and I just recently did it a year ago, so a year in, but it's been good, and again it's another testament of pride and what pride means to just I love it. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining me. I loved this so much. I'm gonna definitely keep following you. I like Brian said, I found him on Miracle Grow social media. I was like, who is this queer guy? Like, I love this. You're like, let's talk about these garden pics. And I'm like, wow, I love this. I loved all of it. So thank you so much. We will have to do this again. Maybe a more niche thing, like a repotting video.
Let's do it.
Or something like that. But thank you so much. Happy Pride. And
Happy Pride.
Can't wait to have you back again.
Yes, please have me back. This was so fun. I'm around, so.
Of course. Hi, plant people. Happy Pride and happy 14th episode. Thank you so much for tuning in week after week. I've had so much fun creating this Planty podcast. This week we celebrated Pride with Miracle Grow social media manager Brian Hood. We had such an awesome conversation about plants and what pride means to us. Tune in next week for episode 15 as we continue the pride theme with Adam B., also known as Not Dude, co-host of Potted Together, one of my favorite Planty podcasts. Make sure to check that out. Remember, be kind to yourself and others. If you want that plant, buy that plant.